starting with the CPU, I feel like I might have travelled back in time to 2023 when this chip probably wasn't even that good then. It's the Intel i5-14600K. So I picked this up for a really good price, £155 at distributor level, which is a fantastic deal for this chip. Because also you're going to get access to that DDR4 memory if you pick the right motherboard, which means you can save some more money as well. There was some weird promo recently, which I missed out on unfortunately, where you could get the CPU for 160 and you could get a Battlefield 6 code, which is probably going to be worth about 50 quid. That's going to bring this down to £110 for a CPU if you're going to play Battlefield. It's an absolutely fantastic deal. As much as everyone loves to glaze AMD Ryzen, you can't ignore a fantastic deal when it comes out, and that's what this was. CPU installation is incredibly easy, and that's not any different here. You simply lift the retention arm and then pull forward the socket, and then you just simply place the CPU inside. The text will be in the readable direction like this. You can't get it wrong because there's little grooves in the CPU and little pegs on the socket. So you just put it in, wiggle it slightly, put the lid down, put the lever back over, done, easy. But one of the problems you might find if you wanted to build this system from scratch is actually finding a motherboard. In the UK, these LGA 1700 motherboards, they're quite hard to get, particularly the Z types, and even more especially the DDR4 types. This is an ASUS Prime Z790 DDR4 version. The reason we went for a Z board is because you can do that overclocking. That's going to get you a little bit more longevity out of your parts if you're willing to put in the time to learn how to do it. This build is actually a bit of a hodgepodge of different parts that I had laying around that I needed to use up in order to create a build to sell through my business. One of those parts that I had laying around for ages is this Corsair Dominator RAM. So it's not actually that good RAM. I mean, it's fine, it's pretty good. It's DDR4 3600 CL18, which is kind of the standard in the industry. It's not any kind of amazing B-die overclocking memory or anything, but it'll do the job. And trying to find a white theme for these really nice looking sticks, I really wanted to find a build that it was going to work in. So I've had these laying around for months and months. It's going to be great to use these. They're going to give great performance. They're going to look fantastic. DDR4 is also exceptionally easy. You just release the latches on slots 2 and 4. You simply place the stick inside. It'll only go in one way. Usually the nicer looking side of the RAM stick will be facing out to the right. Usually, not always. But you can't get it wrong. If you just put it in like this, it should click in. If it doesn't click in somewhat easily, then you've probably got it the wrong way around. And to show you that, if I put this in the wrong way, you see the ugly side with the labels on it. You see that as I'm pushing it, it doesn't sit right. It's kind of rocking back and forth. So you don't want to force it. You just turn it around the correct way and click it in top and bottom. Nice and firm, easy. When it comes to SSDs, it's a bit like when I'm dating all of your mums. I've got a rotation of my favourites that give the best performance. One of those is the ADATA Gamix S70 Blade. This is essentially a top speed SSD for PCIe 4. It also has a DRAM chip on board, and that's the key thing. The DRAM is absolutely essential for a good SSD, because what that does is it means over time, as you're using the drive, the speed isn't going to drop like it will on a cheaper SSD. So I wouldn't ever cheap out on an SSD. I'd always get one with a DRAM cache. Even if that means that the actual read-write speed is lower, you'll have a better experience on a DRAM buffered SSD, so you definitely want one of those. If you're interested, I do actually have a video guide on how to actually choose the best SSD for you, and I'll link that down in the description. NVMe installation is pretty easy, and it's a fairly standard process at this point. Lots of motherboards will have this heat sink on the top which dissipates heat from your SSD, so you simply unscrew both sides of that to reveal it, and then you'll notice it has this protective film on it. You definitely need to take this protective film off. Now this is a bit of a quirk of older boards, but I have to put a standoff in here in order to actually mount the drive. Most modern motherboards, a bit newer than this generation, they'll have this already put in for you. We just need to put that into this slot here, the third one along. Standoff is essentially a little post that sticks off something in order to let you mount it properly. And then you simply slot the SSD in, and it's keyed with a gap here, so you can't get it the wrong way around. Like if I tried to put it in the wrong way around, it's not going to go into that connector at all. So put it the correct way around, slot it in, and you'll see that there's a little gap there. We're going to need to put a small screw in there to hold it in place. So just fasten that down, easy. These screws and standoffs, those should come with your motherboard somewhere in the bottom of the box. And you can simply place the heatsink over the top and just tighten it down, and your SSD's installed, easy. And with the RAM, of course, we said that we're using up a lot of parts in the workshop that haven't been used for sometimes many months. One of those things is this liquid cooler here, which is a frozen Prism 360 by Thermalright. This is probably one of the cheapest ones that they do actually, and their AIOs are quite cheap. Do you need a 360mm liquid cooler for a system of this caliber? Absolutely not. I just happen to have this laying around, and it only costs £55, which is a crazy price for a 360 AIO. But if you wanted to go with an air cooler on this CPU, you'd have absolutely no troubles with that whatsoever. So when it comes to cooling, you're much better off just looking at the actual installation manual, because every single one is different. Even the same model can have different revisions with different instructions. So just look at the manual, but it's not too hard. So once you've assembled the back plate according to the instructions, then you just put it behind the motherboard, and then you put your palm on it to hold it in place, and then you turn the whole thing back over again. Usually that will require you to put some spacers on, like this. Otherwise you're going to tighten it too close to the CPU, it's going to bend it, warp it, and do all kinds of shoot to it. And you can see we're lining up these pieces top and bottom with those little screws that stuck out of the bracket. And you just do a couple of turns each side at a time, rather than tightening one side all the way down first, if you know what I mean. It's going to help spread that paste more evenly, it's going to give you even contact on the CPU, it's just better all around to take it slowly side by side, rather than fully tightening one side down. I often find it's easier to hook up your pump fan and sometimes your CPU fan before you actually install the motherboard in the case, so let's hook that up now. And the same could apply for the RGB cable from your pump head as well. It can be sometimes really hard to reach in and do this at the end, so if we just hook this up now, then you're going to be set. Okay, and the case we're going to use is this NZXT H5 Flow, but it's the updated version. So we did do a review on the old style, which had that more sort of classic H510 kind of look. This one's slightly better in the fact that you can get a 360mm cooler in the top, and I quite like the way that it's laid out. And with all the components we're using today, of course, we're going to need a power supply, and this is one that I had in stock. It is a Deepcool PL750D. As you can see, it is non-modular, but it does come with a 12-volt high power cable that's going to provide up to 450 watts of power, which is enough for any system that needs a 750-watt power supply. People look at these bronze power supplies, they think, oh no, we needed gold, we need 850-watt gold, we need 1,000-watt gold, whatever, you need Corsair RM. You just don't. You just really don't. It does not make a difference. These don't have any coil whine. I've used dozens of them. They're fine. They're just fine. I don't really know what else to say. They work. I mean, there are some benefits to over-speccing. So if you're going to go for an 850 watt, that does give you that flexibility in the future in order to upgrade your components over time, if that's something you're interested in. But the 750 watts is going to do us great here. Really, this system, you could get away with a 600 or a 650 watts. So the 750 is going to give us a bit of breathing room anyway. And then we have to just slide your power supply in. In this case, you do have to put the fan facing up because there's no ventilation on the bottom because it sits flush to the desk. And then all you have to do is secure it in place with hex screws. So I'm going to actually deck this out in two different fan styles, and you can tell me which one's better. This is the TLS12's Thermalright, quite cheap, but they only have a little tiny ring of RGB on them, which might look a little bit classier. I'm going to compare this to the other fan blade diffused RGB fans, and you can tell me at the end which one you prefer. So there we go. 3 front fans are installed. We're not going to install a rear fan because I think we can fit a 360mm cooler in the top if we leave it without a back fan. In your I/O shield if you need one. A lot of motherboards don't have these because they're actually built in already, but some of the cheaper ones they still will, so don't forget to pop this in. And you can see I'm securing the motherboard in place using the included mounting screws. So when you're putting your liquid cooler in, guys, one tip is to pre-feed those fan cables through, because they can be really fiddly to get your hands up in behind there later to feed them through, so let's do that. Now I'm not going to lie, this was a super tight fit. While I'm into that kind of thing personally, I can see why NZXT don't recommend a 360mm top-mounted liquid cooler. Turning your case onto its side makes it a lot easier to mount your liquid cooler radiator with the screws. At this point, I'm just doing some cable tidying and feeding through the necessary cables. Right, then we're going to hook up all our motherboard cables. Let's do it. Finally, our motherboard with it 24 pin with its angled adapter. Let's see if we can squish that all in now. I got it in, but it was a pain. I suggest to avoid this 90-degree adapter and instead use a cable extension. And for graphics, we are once again turning to the ASUS Prime RTX 5070, mainly because I don't have very many white graphics cards in stock, and I really wanted this to be a beautiful white build. But of course, guys, with any kind of custom build, that's the benefit, isn't it? You can put any graphics card you want into it. 9070 XT, probably a better choice than this one. But this is what I've got on hand. This is white and it's going to look great. This is a concept design. You make your PC how you like, guys. 12 gigabytes of VRAM is still enough in 2025, despite what people say, except in some very certain circumstances. They're probably going to get is over time, as games become more memory intensive, you might find that 12 gigabytes does start to lack, and you have to start turning down some texture settings in order to get it to run properly. Overall, the 1440p and even 4K in some games performance is going to be fantastic on this graphics card. You're not going to be disappointed with it, it's just the longevity might be better with something like a Radeon 9070 or 9070 XT. Video card installation is fairly easy. Just slot it into the top long PCIe slot and click it in, then secure the side with the screws. Okay, now we can hook up that 12 volt cable into the GPU. Fantastic. There's no exact science to cable management, just put it in a neat-ish way. Spec for this build is a little bit weird in 2025, using an i5 14600K DDR4. What are you thinking, computer surgeon? Don't use Intel on YouTube? Don't you know it's all about AMD? You should be glazing them from head to toe. Intel? More like Shintel. Are you a shill for Intel? Are you a Shintel? I just like a product when it's at a good price and offering good performance. The reason I'm using the 14600K is one, because I got the CPU for £155, and if you're in America, it's fairly similar price in dollars, of course, but you also get Battlefield 6 with it as well for like the next few days or whatever. But more importantly, it's a really good CPU to use today. Yes, you don't have the upgrade path and everything like that you get on others, yeah, I get that, but today it's fantastic. It also gave me the chance to use up a few other bits that I had in storage. So I had these Dominator Platinum RAM sticks, I had a Z790 ASUS motherboard, I had these NZXT fans that were probably off a liquid cooler or something. So I needed to use all of these things up, and this gave me the perfect excuse. One other part that I wanted to use up was this 360mm liquid cooler by Thermalright, only because I don't really like the style of it for the high-end builds, and it's quite hard to find a budget build where a 360mm is going to make sense. I bought this case because it looked like it would fit a 360mm cooler in the top, but actually officially it doesn't. But being a bit stubborn, I just went ahead and put it in anyway. So hopefully you enjoyed the build. If you did, leave a comment. If you didn't, leave a comment, and I'll see you.